While Trump was threatening China with crushing 100% tariffs over oil purchases, something shocking happened that has him absolutely furious. China just delivered the ultimate economic middle finger that could end Trump's leverage forever. August 2025 was supposed to be the moment Trump finally broke China's will. After months of escalating trade tensions, the president had deployed his ultimate weapon, a devastating 100% tariff threat designed to force China to stop buying oil from Russia and Iran. This wasn't just about trade anymore. This was about forcing China to abandon its strategic allies and submit to American foreign policy demands. But what happened next exposed the fundamental weakness in Trump's entire approach to China. Instead of capitulating to American pressure, China delivered a response so confident and dismissive that it shocked Washington's entire foreign policy establishment. The message was crystal clear: China would never allow the United States to dictate its energy security or foreign policy relationships. The Chinese Foreign Ministry's response was a masterclass in diplomatic defiance. China will always ensure its energy supply in ways that serve our national interests, they posted on social media, directly rejecting Trump's ultimatum. Coercion and pressuring will not achieve anything. China will firmly defend its sovereignty, security, and development interests. This wasn't just diplomatic language. This was China telling Trump that his threats were powerless. What made China's rejection even more devastating was the timing. This came during what were supposed to be productive trade negotiations in Stockholm, where both sides had been signaling optimism about reaching a deal. But when Trump tried to link trade concessions to China's energy relationships with Russia and Iran, China drew a line that completely exposed the limits of American leverage. The foundation for China's bold defiance had been carefully constructed over months of strategic planning, while Trump was focused on his public threats and tariff announcements. While American officials thought they were negotiating from a position of strength, China had been systematically building economic relationships and energy security arrangements that made American pressure irrelevant. China's oil strategy was particularly brilliant because it turned Trump's own foreign policy contradictions against him. The president needed a trade deal with China for political reasons, but he also wanted to use that deal to force China to abandon its strategic partnerships with Russia and Iran. China recognized that Trump couldn't have both, and they were prepared to call his bluff. The economic fundamentals heavily favored China's position. Chinese imports of Iranian oil averaged over 1 million barrels per day, representing roughly 80% to 90% of Iran's total oil exports. This wasn't just an economic relationship, it was a strategic partnership that provided China with discounted energy while giving Iran crucial revenue. For China, this represented fire sale prices that were too valuable to abandon for American political demands. The Russian oil component was equally strategic for China. Chinese imports of Russian oil had risen 20% in April alone, reaching more than 1.3 million barrels per day. This represented not just economic benefit, but also strategic solidarity with Russian President Vladimir Putin that served China's broader geopolitical interests. China understood that abandoning Russia would signal weakness to other strategic partners. Most importantly, China had studied Trump's negotiating patterns and identified a crucial weakness. His need for headline-grabbing deals made him vulnerable to strategic patience. While Trump needed visible victories to satisfy his political base, China could afford to wait and let Trump's own contradictions undermine his negotiating position. The psychological component of China's strategy was equally sophisticated. Chinese officials projected calm confidence, while American policy seemed increasingly desperate and contradictory. When U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent emerged from talks saying the Chinese take their sovereignty very seriously, he was essentially admitting that American threats had failed to move China's position. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you enjoy our videos. The moment that crystallized China's strategic victory came when Treasury Secretary Bessent made a stunning admission that exposed the complete failure of Trump's approach. "We don't want to impede on their sovereignty," So they would like to pay a 100% tariff, Besant told reporters, essentially acknowledging that China was prepared to accept the maximum penalty rather than submit to American demands. This admission was devastating for Trump's entire negotiating strategy. The threat of 100% tariffs was supposed to be so severe that China would have no choice but to capitulate. But China's willingness to accept even this extreme punishment demonstrated that Trump had fundamentally misunderstood the balance of power in U.S.-China relations. Even more damaging was what China's defiance revealed about American inconsistency. Chinese officials had studied Trump's foreign policy and noticed the contradictions in American goals toward Russia and Iran. While Trump demanded that China stop buying oil from these countries, his administration's broader policies toward Moscow and Tehran seemed inconsistent and politically motivated rather than strategically coherent. The energy security argument that China deployed was particularly devastating because it highlighted American hypocrisy. The United States routinely cited national security concerns to justify its own trade and energy policies, but when China used identical reasoning to defend its oil purchases, American officials called it unacceptable. This double standard undermined American credibility in international forums. China's strategic calculation proved exactly correct. Despite Besant's tough rhetoric about 100% tariffs, he also admitted that, "I believe that we have the makings of a deal." This contradiction exposed the fundamental weakness in Trump's position. He needed a trade deal more than China needed to change its oil purchasing policies. The diplomatic implications were equally significant. By forcing Trump to choose between a trade deal and his demands about oil purchases, China was essentially testing whether Trump would sacrifice economic benefits for foreign policy principles. China correctly calculated that Trump would prioritize the trade deal, effectively abandoning his oil purchase demands. Most brilliantly, China's rejection of American demands actually strengthened its position, with other countries facing similar pressure. When India faced 25% tariffs for buying Russian oil, China's successful resistance provided a model for how other nations could maintain their sovereignty against American economic coercion. Trump's reaction to China's oil defiance was characteristically erratic and revealed his administration's complete lack of strategic coherence. While threatening 100% tariffs on China, Trump simultaneously imposed 25% tariffs on India for identical oil purchases, creating a confusing policy landscape that undermined American credibility with both countries. The immediate economic consequences exposed the absurdity of Trump's position. American companies dependent on Chinese trade watched nervously as their government threatened to destroy commercial relationships over issues completely unrelated to bilateral commerce. The threat of 100% tariffs created uncertainty that damaged American business interests far more than Chinese ones. Chinese manufacturing companies that had been relocating to Southeast Asia to avoid American tariffs suddenly found their strategies vindicated. The narrow difference between tariffs on China and alternative production hubs made the costs of relocating less appealing, and many Chinese manufacturers began reconsidering their offshore investments. The energy markets reacted by strengthening China's position relative to American interests. Chinese willingness to pay higher tariffs rather than abandon strategic oil relationships sent a clear signal to energy producers worldwide. China was a reliable long-term partner that wouldn't abandon suppliers under American pressure. Financial analysts immediately recognized that China's successful resistance to American pressure represented a fundamental shift in global economic relationships. Beijing was demonstrating that it could maintain its strategic autonomy even under maximum American economic pressure, providing a model for other countries seeking to resist American coercion. Most significantly, China's defiance emboldened other countries to resist American demands. If China could successfully reject American ultimatums about oil purchases, other nations began calculating that they too could maintain their sovereignty against American economic threats. China's successful resistance to Trump's oil ultimatum represents more than just a victory in trade negotiations. It marks a fundamental shift in global power relationships that demonstrates the limits of American economic economic coercion. By maintaining its energy relationships despite maximum American pressure, China has proven that strategic patience and economic leverage can successfully counter American threats. The energy security implications of China's victory extend far beyond immediate oil purchases. China's willingness to accept 100% tariffs rather than abandon strategic suppliers sends a powerful message to energy producers worldwide. Partnerships with China offer long-term stability that American relationships cannot provide. This positions China as a more reliable partner for countries seeking to diversify their economic relationships away from American dominance. The geopolitical precedent that China has established could reshape how middle powers respond to American pressure. China's successful maintenance of relationships with Russia and Iran, despite maximum American economic threats, demonstrates that countries can preserve their strategic autonomy even under severe American sanctions. This provides a roadmap for other nations seeking to maintain independence from American foreign policy demands. The technological and industrial implications also favor China's long-term position. Chinese manufacturers who stayed in China rather than relocating to avoid tariffs are now finding their decision vindicated as tariff differentials between China and alternative locations narrow. The China Plus One strategy that was supposed to reduce dependence on Chinese manufacturing is being reconsidered as American tariffs make alternative locations less attractive. Perhaps most significantly, China's victory demonstrates that American threats are often more effective as political theater than as actual policy tools. By calling Trump's bluff on 100% tariffs, China has exposed the gap between American rhetoric and American capability, potentially encouraging other countries to test the limits of American economic power. The diplomatic implications extend far beyond bilateral U.S.-China relations. China's successful resistance while maintaining productive trade negotiations demonstrates a level of strategic sophistication that contrasts sharply with American policy contradictions. This positions China as a more reliable and predictable partner for countries seeking stable, long-term relationships. Educational and research advantages continue to flow toward China as American policies create uncertainty for international partnerships. While Trump cuts federal support for scientific research and restricts foreign student access, China continues investing heavily in technological development and international collaboration. The brain drain that was supposed to benefit America is instead flowing toward China as international talent seeks stability and opportunity. The military and security implications of China's energy strategy could prove most significant for long-term global relationships. By maintaining access to discounted oil from Russia and Iran, China preserves crucial energy security while building strategic partnerships that could prove valuable in future conflicts. American attempts to isolate these countries through economic pressure have instead driven them closer to China. Looking ahead, China's victory in resisting American oil demands has established new precedents for how major powers can maintain strategic autonomy under American pressure. The combination of economic leverage, strategic patience, and diplomatic skill that China deployed provides a template for other countries seeking to resist American economic coercion. The ultimate lesson of China's oil strategy victory is that Trump's approach to international relations has systematically strengthened China's position while weakening American influence. By attempting to use trade relationships to force foreign policy changes, Trump has demonstrated the limits of American power and created opportunities for strategic competitors to build alternative systems and relationships. As other countries observe China's success in maintaining its sovereignty against maximum American pressure, the effectiveness of American economic threats will be permanently diminished. The world has learned that American ultimatums can be successfully resisted through strategic planning and economic alternatives, lessons that will influence international responses to American policy for decades to come. China's triumph over Trump's oil ultimatum may ultimately be remembered as the moment when American economic hegemony revealed its fundamental limitations. The country that was supposed to be forced into submission has instead demonstrated superior strategic thinking and economic resilience, providing a model for other nations seeking to maintain their independence in an increasingly multipolar world. Subscribe to our channel for more latest news on politics.